Welcome to the Collingwood Rant. I'm Sly.
And I'm Spook.
Is that it? Just Spook?
Yeah, it's a pretty depressing day, so just Spook today.
How the mighty have fallen. I thought you were going to be curfew Spook.
No, no. Or maybe we should probably hurry up and record this before we're shut off.
Yeah, so we lost to Brisbane by a narrow, 85 points?
Yeah, we're close.
What did you think about that performance?
Look, I thought the first quarter was good. The rest of it didn't really come as a great surprise. Brisbane is a side, even though they've been struggling the last couple of weeks, are going to be a final side. They're up the top end of the ladder. We're down the arse end, and I think that's how the game ended up playing out. I don't know how much we were expecting these kids could sustain this stuff in their first years. What was the stat? We had 7 players under 20 games.
Yeah.
It's a big ask. And I think you've got to put that performance into perspective and not do the henny penny, the sky is falling rhetoric like a lot of people were doing.
Oh, we're going to get to that.
Let's get to that then.
No, we'll get to that in a little bit. Should we have dropped the likes of Josh Thomas and Chris Mayne for other kids, more kids?
I don't know. I think you've still got to have that balance of age and experience, even though I'm not massive fans of them hanging around at the expense of something else. I think you'd be risking obliteration if you didn't have some seasoned bodies there. Although I guess you've got to really gauge the output as well.
Yeah, I know, we've faulted Mayne for 4 years doing the Rant in terms of his disposal. It's often the sideways kick or the little backwards kick or the little handball. And that is frustrating.
Do you know what his favourite movie is?
Sideways.
How did you know?
But you cannot fault his defensive endeavor, and he will always put his body on the line. And you're not going to get that out of any kid. And you wouldn't want to be, asking 18, 19-year-old 5-gamer to throw himself at the bottom of the pack and get poleaxed time and time again, because I just think you have a duty in terms of your cultivation of the young talent to bring them up without breaking them. And yeah,
you're talking about Collingwood, aren't you?
Yeah, I know it's an oxymoron at Collingwood, but so I don't mind that Mayne selected. Josh Thomas is an interesting one because his statistical output is low enough where you'd think, well, you're going to get that much from anywhere else. So, I can understand the angst about continuing to select him, but on the flip side is what you said, you still need that senior framework. I see people are getting upset that, he might be recontracted for another year. And I think, well, look, you got a lot of experience going out of that club, so you still need some senior bodies. And I'm guessing that next year for Josh Thomas, whoever the coach is, will probably be like in that last year Jared Blair played, or the last year Tarkin Lockyer played, where they come up 7, 8, 9, 10 games, but they're not the first option. They're sort of more the fallback option as we try and transition into a new future. Did you notice how slippery it seemed to be?
I think as the night progressed, the fumbles rapidly increased, and it clearly must have been dewy, but we've been caught out before inside of that dewy environment. I don't know, maybe it's hard to predict when you're up there what the weather's going to be like and what it's going to do in terms of making that ball slippery, but they clearly were struggling to hold on to it. And yeah. I don't think that's as a result of basic skillers or anything like that. It was just it was clearly hard to grip. Yeah. Although Brisbane, to their credit, didn't seem to have too much trouble holding on to it.
Oh, but they're training in those sort of conditions, and I think it looked it also looked like, the more the ball was in the ground, the dewier, the slipperier it was getting. So that's, as the game went on, if they were constantly using the same ball, it just sort of seemed we were struggling to handle it well. How about our other favourite whipping boys, or everyone's favourite whipping boys, the umpires? Do you like the umpiring?
No, not particularly. Should I
don't want to. I'm not saying the umpiring had any impact on the margin. But geez, that was really poor umpiring. The amount of times one of
I
our
just
players,
I just like to jump in though and say that surely diversity's got nothing to do with the umpire selections, does it? It's about ability, isn't it?
Well, there's diversity in, it seemed like every time Brisbane took a mark, it was like, yeah, okay, hold it, take your time, dispose of it. And every time we took a mark, it was like, yeah, you've played on. It's like, what? There was a amount of times like someone took a step back and it was like, yeah, you've played on. It was like, this is now a double standard in terms of how you're calling this. That 50-meter penalty against McCreary was
again, and we talked about this months and months ago. What is that rule meant to achieve? What are you stopping?
It's not what they're stopping. It's what they're trying to engender, which is giving the guy off the ball a free rein to drive the ball down further. So there's less defensive negation in what they can do with it. And
in that instance, you stop McCreary from creeping forward.
Look, I've
any other year you've crept forward, you've stepped over the mark. It's a 50 at any rate.
I've always whinged about the application of that 50-meter penalty because the guy on the mark previously had no option. It was like the guy off the ball could feign a handball. If the guy on the mark threw his hands out, like, well, I might block it. It was like, well, that's a 50. The guy off the ball could pretend to play on, and if the guy on the mark responded, it was like, okay, that's a 50. You can't do any of that until the call play on. Now it's like the hands in the back rule. It's like we have a rule which was pushed in the back, but apparently our umpires are too stupid to implement it. So let's just dilute it to the moment the hand goes in the back, it's probably going to be a push. Let's be a free. And the same thing with the man on the mark. It's like, well, let's just stop them from moving. And that way it's very black and white that if they move, it's a 50-meter penalty, regardless of, how little they've impacted constants. That's what frustrates me. The guy on the mark or the guy running past, because often it's just a teammate running past the guy off the ball who gets pinged, they shouldn't be penalised unless they've directly impacted a contest. Because you have to let these players run to their defensive zones and do what they need to do. It just seems not the umpire, but the interpretation of rules more and more is about taking defensive options away from the team without the ball. So there'll be freer ball movement and more scoring. You look at something like the deliberate. It's exactly the same thing. Let's take kicking it out of bounds out of the game as an option and call it deliberate all the time. Even if you kick it 60 meters and it takes 4 weird bounces and then goes out, that must have been deliberate. So
insufficient intent.
That's my rant. So that really frustrates me.
But how's the thing you notice now even more so is the without the crowds there, about just how absurd the umpires sound. Stand.
The crowds were
it's like watching one of those old was it Barbara Woodhouse or Barbara somebody? Remember in the 70s used to do that dog training thing?
Yeah.
Walkies. Levels of absurdity around that. How was the Glooftus one though, where every single fucking player on the ground had stopped and she called advantage?
Yeah.
That was superb umpiring. Really read the fucking moment there brilliantly.
I think the umpiring standard in general is poor, and they always have that blanket defense from commentators and all that. It's such a hard job. It's like, well, is it? I understand it's a taxing job. Is it a hard job to stand 20 meters away and go?
It's a hard job when every single rule has about 98,000 interpretations behind it.
And I think that's the bigger problem. It's as much as we all criticize the umpires. I think the problem is they just have so much shit to interpret according to higher ups that at times they struggle. And the other thing I never understood too is umpires encouraged to get as close to the contest as possible. I think doesn't that blindside them a lot? Wouldn't it be better if they were told, look, just stay about 10, 15, 20 meters away. You're going to get a much better perspective of what the hell's going on. Anyway, Robert Harvey, how do you think he's fared as coach? Because I was seeing calls for him to be sacked during the game because apparently he should produce a miracle with that team.
Well, yeah, you would sack him now because there's no way I could endure another year of him next year.
Yeah,
that's happening, isn't it?
I've said it before.
If we sack him at 3/4 time, is the new coach coming in? Or is he starting this week?
That'd have to be Brenton Sanderson or Hayden Skipworth or, one of the players.
Maybe it'd be like maybe they should pick the coach each week, like in a pass the parcel type scenario, or drawing short straws. Even that'd be better.
I think when you look at that side we fielded, so as I said, there were 7 players under 20 games. A lot of those were, we had 5 guys under 20 years of age. And then you look at the top end. So the bigger concern too, I think, is, okay, you can understand the kid's going to be inconsistent. You look at the top end, side bottom it was so-so. I don't think he was great or anything. Thomas was...
He's elite though.
Yeah.
I don't understand. The commentary keeps telling me how elite he is.
I don't understand that the commentary is constantly blind to his errors. And people used to say this to me for years, because I've often been a side bottom critic, and they just said he's elite. It's like, also you could put him up there with Dustin Martin and Nat Fyfe. Yeah, okay. Josh Thomas, done nothing. Elliott struggled to get into it. Jack Magden was, his typical Jack self. Brady Mychek.
What did he kick 5 behinds?
Yeah, not really a game for I guess at Collingwood you really achieved what he has to do. His kicking's been a concern. He kicked 1-4. It's really nosedive. He was an extremely reliable kick a couple of years ago, and it's just come down. I don't know.
We back the ball in the end.
Yeah, we do. Taylor Adams, I'd really be concerned about his form. It's deteriorated drastically, and the disposal it's become very iffy. Sort of looking at him, understand he's had injuries and all that sort of stuff, and it's difficult given where Collingwood is. But you'd hope it's a form slump and not just sort of where he's I mean, he's only 27, 28 later this week. You think it's a slump, but I mean, I've seen players who just stop, and the game goes past them. And just with someone like Adams, I'd be concerned that for all his careers, he's used his body as a battering ram.
Yeah, so definitely.
He's probably going to age prematurely. Jack Crisp tried. Grundy.
Do you win the hitouts?
Does anyone care anymore? His tap work compared to Darcy Cameron's really frustrates me. Grundy's whole mandate seems to be, if I get my hand to the ball, it's a victory. It doesn't matter where the ball goes, but statistically, it's a victory. Whereas Darcy Cameron seems to be trying to hit players up. I don't know if it's just a lack of communication, or we've been complaining about this for 3 years. I don't know. We hope that a new coach is going to sort it out, but
he has moments though where his tap work is really effective. There was a couple that he put down the throat of someone standing on the outside. And again, I think it all comes down to that whole miscommunication between that midfield and him. There's just no direction. Sometimes I think it's just dumb luck that lands in them. Sometimes I think he actually must see them there, and that's his intent when he wins the hit out to drive it that particular way. I mean, how many times does he just pump it up and then rows it himself?
Yeah, the ones that frustrate me are when he drops it basically at his feet. He just sort of goes up and drops it straight down. And it's like, who's that meant to be helping? I'd rather they just, we said it so often, I'd rather they do what, the Brisbane Ruckman did during their free peat, which was just jump up and just, punch it 20 meters. It's as good as a kick. It'll also frazzle any defensive zones from the opposition. So, we've talked about that. Will Hoskin-Elliott, after a really good purple patch, he's been struggling again.
I think you're highlighting all this stuff, but I think it is really it's a group sort of slippage into the season, can't end quick enough.
Yeah, and it looks like they're tiring also. I mean, Josh Dacos sort of didn't look quite right coming back.
Well, no, first game back you can excuse.
But just sort of some of the experienced players, I would have preferred that they would have stood up and sort of led by example. And even if they got smashed, just to sort of tell the players. I mean, I recall a game about 4 years ago where we got smashed and Pendlebury said, we basically gave up. It was that Richmond game, actually. And it's like, what I want you guys, the senior guys, not the young guys. I want the senior guys to be teaching. I want them to be teaching young guys, you don't fucking give up at any stage. You fight this out. Even if you lose by 150 points, you fight it out and just ingrain that as a habit. Jordan De Goey looked like he's still, it's probably our best. He looked like he was really trying, but just with so little support, it
No,
was.
that's the thing. Exactly that. He can't do it all on his own.
So going back to like you're saying, it's two before that game. It's 2 games to the end of the season. Players obviously are looking forward to like, okay, the end of the season can't come quick enough.
Especially this one.
Yeah. And this season's been, just said it before, it's been the worst season I've endured at Collingwood in terms of there's so many things going wrong.
It is your traditional anus horribilius.
You don't think the performance is endemic of something worse? You don't think, that potentially the players are concerned for for the stability at the club, that they might not be traded out because of salary cap concerns, or there's any disharmony there, or any disconnect between the players and the administration, or anything like that? You don't think a performance like that, where they lost by 85 points, doesn't have some greater root cause?
No, I think it's just simply a case of Quarter needing to step down.
Oh, well, that's a good point. But yeah, I mean, you don't think
that's my justification. I don't need to extrapolate anymore on that. It's just bold statements. Isn't that enough?
Oh, well, I saw people saying, well, this is why it's happening. And it's like, well, you do realize for a quarter and a half, they tried it and they just got outplayed by a superior team who's in the top 4.
You look at the balance, like that defensive setup that we had. That's probably one of the weakest defenses we've put on the park for years. What's his name? Dunny Hare had a field day on Ruffy, but it's not Roughhead that normally stands him. It's Darcy Moore, who has that mobility to run with him. It was just everything was out of whack. I mean, they had some effective tools. The defense was never going to hold up forever. It is what it was, based on who can get out in the park at the moment.
Yeah,
they chose to rest Howe. Fair enough, he'll play again this week. But
they didn't rest him. Yeah, his wife was giving.
Oh, that's right. No, he is. Yeah, they was rested in the team thing, but his wife had the kid.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep. Yeah.
So he should be back this week. So that shores it up a little bit, but it's still horrendously undermanned.
Yeah, I mean the side's horribly imbalanced for a number of reasons. I mean, Pendlebury's gone out, but obviously he's toward the end of his career. But just I think the biggest concern is the concern we've always had during Buckley's tenure and since Cloak went is, who's your key forward?
And that's it.
And the side should be pointing at that key player. And Cox tried to fill that role. He did it on occasion. Other times he had to contend with horrible delivery, and other times he just didn't have good games, and he's had injury problems and eye problems and all that sort of stuff. But the last few weeks, it's like we've been trying to make Jamie Elliott our key forward, and he's 5'6" or something.
Yeah, it's nuts.
And Myercheck, he's asked to play in that role, but he's not genuinely a crash and bash key forward. So you look at the way the side's built, and you can throw the Goey down there, but then he's been playing so well in the midfield. You're just really lacking in every component of the on-field balance. So, you're lacking the key forward. Your midfield doesn't have genuine synergy and is lacking. I mean, I guess the Goey's gone into an A-grader, but he's the only one. The other ones are like blue-collar workers. And your defense is lacking Darcy Moore and Howe. So you're struggling. Crane was another one who went out with glandular fever. So it's really unbalanced side, and that compounds the issues with these guys just won the season to be over.
It's clearly the start of a rebuild as well.
Yeah,
you're going to have to go out and get those pieces, though.
Well, let's talk about the rebuild. Obviously, the biggest question is who will be the coach.
Well, we know it's not me. You still got your hat in the ring?
Well, I did ask, but we'll see. I actually find it really funny because I've seen this concern. I'll call it a concern on the socials and message boards and that well, according to the media, it's come down to Pike and McRae. And prior to that, I think Tom Brown made some noise. I can't even remember what it was. And then you get people going,
no one does. Don't feel bad.
Yeah. Well, and then you get people going, they're not even talking to Alistair Clarkson.
Seriously. I mean, I don't know how anyone can actually just make a post or make that sort of statement thinking that Collingwood would not be throwing the world at Alistair Clarkson.
You'd think that
What? Because I've been reading some of these things that people. I've got the inside word. I got it from more than one reliable source. I've got it from two because that adds weight to your tweet. That they're not even interested in him, and I think the media's run with some crap around that. Probably the Herald slum because that's one of your great fucking areas of truth. That where we're not interested either. You got to call absolute bullshit on this. Of course they're interested, and of course they're going to pursue him like a madman. The thing is, he's going to probably say no. He's going to sit out the year.
well, the
And
thing
I
too.
think,
Go on.
you go on.
I just said the thing you got to look at too is there'd be two layers to why they'd go after Clarkson. One, obviously, he's arguably the best coach in the game. So you'd want him at the helm of this rebuild and teaching the players and all that. But given the challenge to the board would be saying, we've got to get him because if we fucking get him, that'll just shut everyone up and everyone will be happy and maybe we won't get voted out and all that sort of shit. However,
New quarter.
however, people are actually running out, they're not talking to him at all. Okay, yeah. And
I think, some of the people that are doing that are pushing that fucking sad narrative. It's you'd have to be insane to think that.
You'd have to be insane to think that they're not talking to as many people as possible. And the other thing that people need to consider too is, hey, there's still a season going on. So I understand that sometimes coaches are, appointed toward the end of the season. I mean, I recall Brad Scott left with a few rounds to go against Collingwood. A few rounds to go. We just got an assistant coach at Collingwood. But, usually these things start to play out later on when coaches have wrapped up for the season and you can talk to them properly. And let's not forget that in Victoria, we've been in lockdown more than we've been out of lockdown, and now we're in curfew also. So it can't be easy for the club to go out and have these meetings and talk to people the way they used to occur, the way they occur elsewhere and all that. So
no, you do it all on Zoom. It's okay. It doesn't make any difference. Just do it on Zoom.
I can just imagine, Alistair Clarkson planning, the strategies and selections for the upcoming week and just telling the Collingwood club, just hang on a second, I'm planning Hawthorn's game, but I will talk to you also. And even though I said I'll see out the year and all that, I will just field all those meetings with you because that'll keep your supporters happy.
No, it's nuts.
Well, what about the question where people are going, well, if Collingwood don't get Clarkson, then they're just inept?
What I love about statements like this, it's like Clarkson has no fucking say in this decision. It's just, it has to be because I think somebody justified it on one of the boards the other day that there's only one club looking for a coach at the moment. And if we can't land him, they're fucking morons or something. I mean, seriously. So that's it. That's as simple as that. Well, there's one piece to the puzzle left. You have to be it. Do you have a say in it? No. You just have to be it. He can fucking choose to put he's getting paid next year to put his feet up and scratch his nuts for 12 months.
And
who's going to think any ill of him? And he'll walk into a job in season 2023, no questions asked. So why would he feel pressure to take the Collingwood job?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the other thing too is, people are saying, well, they should get him regardless. And it's like, okay, let's say Collingwood's just totally hypothetically, Collingwood says to Clarkson, here's $5 million to coaches for next year. And Clarkson goes, well, that's just, I can't refuse that money. Do you really want a coach there who just actually doesn't want to be there and he's only been enticed because of the financial remuneration? You'd want a coach who says, yes, I want to fucking coach you. I want to take charge of this club. I want to be the one to rebuild you and bring you to glory. And, I want to fucking do it. And then the salary and all that will work all that later. If you're just getting him in just because he's totally got a mercenary attitude, doesn't that risk what happened to St Kilda 20 years ago when they appointed Malcolm Blight and they sort of threw all this money at him and he got there and halfway through the year, they're sort of like, yeah, he's actually not the guy that, we thought he'd be. And he doesn't want to do a lot of the things that we require him to do. So we're sacking him. It's like, well, that worked out well. Whoever Collingwood gets, whether it's Clarkson or, some next generation coach or myself or whoever, surely one of the things you want is someone who fucking wants to be there rather than is bought, or whose allegiance is bought to be there.
Yep.
You know, I know sort of it's happened at times. Like, you know, I recall that Paul Roos has effectively lured out of retirement to coach Melbourne. But I mean, he went into Melbourne with absolutely no expectation other than to be the mentor to Goodwin for a couple of years, and then Goodwin would take over. So it's totally different. Whereas if you were getting whoever the next coach of Collingwood is, you expect that guy to be there for 10 years. I mean, that's the 10 years we give out, isn't it? 10 years.
Yeah, I think that's to give it these days.
Yeah. So you're pointing a coach who is going to be your long-term coach. I mean, I hate these fucking suggestions too that look, bring in someone like Mark Williams for 2 years and he can mentor the next guy. And it's like, no, I want the guy who takes over to be capable of taking over from day one. Maybe he's going to make mistakes and learn, and he's going to have people around him who's going to help him find his way. But he needs to be the person from day one, not from, 2 years down the track.
I agree with that. Look, and the thing is, I think if Clarkson is a no-show, I'm more and more warming to the appointment of someone who's going to grow with that list. You're going to be in a rebuild phase. You're going to have a lot of young kids there. I think you want something that's going to bond and develop and grow with them. That would be, and that could be anyone that's got aptitude.
Yeah, and you want some,
and I think the key thing is, whatever the club is setting as the criteria in their search, that it's still someone that's a very close match to that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the club would, given the talk in the articles a while ago, there's going to be an exhaustive process, and that they'll have criteria where they're taking into account. They're going to be a young list, and we're going to need to have someone who can mentor and cultivate these people or players as they grow with the team. And, so it's not going to be sort of this whole thing of let's just go get someone ready-made who can just slot in and take us directly to success. Because it's going to be a journey given where the list is at. And in terms of rebuilding, I mean, we're seeing a lot of criticisms now about how the club should have kept their first round pick, because we could have had pick 1 and 2 now in the upcoming national draft. Well, we could finish as low as second last. We could finish, I think, as high as fourth last or third last. And I'm seeing a lot of people going, oh, well, we could have had Dacos and Horn.
Yeah, no, I tell you, for these people who have this amazing fucking ability to see 12 months into the future, buy Tattslotto tickets. Go off and live your fucking life happy. Nobody predicted this stuff coming. Nobody at the end, obviously we have to repeat this again, at the start of the season thought this year would turn out the way it is. At the time, the strategy was probably sound. It's bitten us on the ass, but fuck, rewriting history to suit it isn't going to fucking change anything.
Yeah, well, I mean, I was relatively negative about this year, and I only had us as low as 10th. So that would have been pick 8, which for what they gave up, I mean, I probably would have still asked for more, but, that's as low as I expected.
I have no doubt the intent was that, but, it's that whole classic thing, and I don't feel like I want to justify this, is that you get what the value is put forward. People will pay what they think it's worth. And no matter what, we cock that period up, but we still come away with something. And we've come away with some potentially good-looking players. There's a balance here. Yeah. It's not ideal, but, it looks like it's actually going to bear fruit.
Well, it is going to be something that'll be judged in retrospect, because it'll depend on how far some of these kids go and how good they become. You look at someone like Ollie Henry and you think, geez, he looks like he might be a special talent. So that'd be a great acquisition,
And really, all you need is one of them to be fucking elite. And that's your vanish pick justified there and then.
Yeah. But
I know you just love the fact that, people I think were tweeting this week about that Nick Davis can't come quick enough.
Nick Davis, good old Nick Davis.
That one was deliberate.
Yeah, right.
This kid is just going to come in and just save them all. It's like the arrival of Superman. Is he gonna come in a rocket? Is Ma and Pa Dacos going to find him in a farm?
Potentially.
I think he apparently 12 months into his life, he was lifting tractors.
Oh, well, if it's Zack Snyder's Superman, you'll probably come and level to Lexus.
Yeah. You do realise a chunk of kryptonite will hit him in his first game.
You do realise Collingwood will be his kryptonite. Look, I mean, I think we should have got more in terms of the stuff
We already
gave
got
up.
more.
We should have got more talent or something. I don't know. Like, I don't know what the club's financials are and all that sort of stuff. But in terms of like when I was giving up that first round pick, I would have even been posturing for someone like, oh, well, look, give us your 2 first or second rounds, or the hell it was, and give us Riccardi and we'll give you Noble for something like that. I would have been trying to still get a little bit more out of it. I don't know. Maybe they tried and they couldn't do it. As you said,
I think there was still a sense of overrating the list to a certain extent.
Yeah, and as you said, I mean, it is a seller's market. You can only, if you go to a club and say, well, give us what you've got, you can only take what they've got. So if their picks were 17 and 20 or whatever, that's all you can ask. You can't ask for 14 or whatever. So anyway, I mean, we'll see how it fares in the coming years. Actually, Jordan DeGoey is relatively privileged. He got to play for 2 years while there was this sexual allegation hanging over him, and yet now they've dropped it.
No, you forgot to say that he played for 2 years while he was guilty by Twitter.
Yeah, he was guilty by Twitter, so he should have probably missed those 2 years, shouldn't he?
Where are all the people that were saying that he should have been sacked there on the spot, that he shouldn't be playing, it's a bad look, all that sort of stuff? Where are they now?
I don't know. I'm sure they're not apologising.
Did they come out and publicly apologise?
No. I think they're
maybe they got it wrong. Would you concede you got that sort of thing wrong? Well, or is it you're just too far up on your own moral high horse that it takes a couple of years to get down?
I don't think they'd get down. I think they're still up there. And I'm sure they're
probably... He's innocent? All right, I've got to go and champion 20 other things now.
I would think that some of them would actually say he only was cleared because he's a celebrity.
Or a privileged white male.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't want to say, I think that he got off because he's a celebrity, because that could be misread. It's, guilt by social media. It's one of the most
horrible. The police
are
paying his court costs as well. Sort of doesn't really say there was an element of doubt in there, does it?
No, not at all.
No.
Yeah.
I mean, we do have a legal system for a reason, but you wouldn't want that get in the way of Twitter, would you?
Yeah, well, I think the legal system is becoming obsolete in the light of social media. I mean, why try people in courts of law when you can do it on social media?
No, I think you just hang, draw, and quarter them, and if they're innocent later, anyway, they probably had it coming for something.
We should have our own social media, and instead of likes, let's just have innocent and guilty. Just call it, I don't know, just call it the courtroom, something like that. And you put profiles on, and if someone does something wrong, you go, this person did this, and you tag them, and then you have 2 options, innocent or guilty.
I think they should be made to stand in a room with some big rings rotating around them while some giant heads dictate their guilt and innocence. You got to put some theatrics into this.
I think that's what happened to Alan Didak and Heath Shaw when they had Didak Gate and had to face Eddie Maguire. Just this big head saying guilty. Braden Maynard wants out, but he's contracted for next year. So
it's always. Have you noticed that one always comes out after a loss?
Yeah. Well, that's when it's going to happen. I mean,
I've heard from reliable sources, 2 reliable sources actually, from within the club, that he wants out and he's going to Melbourne, because that's how you do it now. It's all this stuff is sorted out before the season ends. It's pretty easy to make happen then.
I'm actually curious what will happen at Melbourne, because I've heard that their salary cap is fucked. Or I shouldn't say fucked. It's stuffed pretty full. So I don't know if they can be making grand acquisitions, because you'd think that Maynard would command maybe 600,000-700,000 a year at least. So
easily. None of this stuff's ever stopped Richmond or Geelong.
Yeah, I was having a conversation with someone else about Collingwood situation versus their situations, and I was saying, but the one thing that happened with both Geelong and Richmond didn't happen to Collingwood, and that's that at Geelong, Gary Ablett left, and at Richmond, Alex Rance left. So that gave them
a fair chunk of money back.
Yeah. And then Richmond's steadily been losing players. I mean, the more the sort of peripheral players, but they've steadily been losing players. The query is, I mean, they're probably taking cuts to, pursue success and all that, but getting Tom Lynch knee, you think, well, they must have done some pretty nifty, I don't know what you call it. They would have had to do some nifty accounting to make sure they could fit him in for however long he's going to be there. But yeah, Collingwood, when we and don't forget, like with Collingwood, I mean, it's Eddie McGuire says it. He keeps saying it. It was a strategy. It wasn't an error. It was a strategy. It was a strategy to have a shot at a flag.
Very much an all or nothing one.
Yeah, I mean, it was, and there was a scorched earth policy. Totally don't agree with it, but that was him. It was a strategy. I mean, the big problem with Collingwood, I mean, we're not going to go into this again, but we'll just briefly touch upon this, if you consider 218 their zenith, it's like, well, why were you going out then getting, Dame Beams and all that? Anyway, let's not go back there just yet. Of course, I'm sure Jeff Brown will come out and mention the salary cap. He seems to mention it every article he appears. But the petition's fallen over, so the club actually doesn't have to go to an EGM unless there's a new petition drawn up.
Do you think they might get the words right on this one?
I think I've seen the words on this one. It's club bad.
He must go. Bad, evil person, naughty, bot.
I did see this one, and they got Mark Quarters wrong. They called him Mork Quarter. So, but Quarter and Brown seem to be almost having a bit of a stoush publicly. Almost, that one time they spoke. Quarter's not obligated to do anything. If you were Mark Quarter, how would you treat the Jeff Brown challenge? How would you treat Jeff Brown now?
With contempt.
So how would you handle the whole potential board challenge?
Well, I don't know. I mean, if you look at it from the current perspective, he's not up for election until next year. So what does he have to do? All he's got to do is point and laugh.
Oh, if there's no GM, I mean, Jeff Brown's still saying, I want all the positions spilled at the AGM. So I'm saying, well, Mark Quarter right now.
Do you know what I'm going to find really curious? Just to if there's no spillage and there's 3 positions up, do you think Brown will actually go for one of them? It'll be a lesser lot.
No, definitely not.
So won't it all just look like a big fucking waste of time?
It'll look like it's definitely president all or nothing. But unless they do get the signatures for an EGM or threaten to get the signatures for an EGM, and then the club is then either they're in the position where they can say, well, look, we'll call your bluff, or go for it and go to EGM. So this I'm saying is, what should Mark Quarter do as the leader of the club, leader of that board? He's no longer on the threat of the petition. So how should he handle Jeff Brown?
With contempt.
Well, I actually have a very similar attitude. Look, I don't want to go to an EGM anymore because it's disruptive. You look at how messed up our season's been. We're trying to get a coach and all that. So I think they need to settle this some way. If I was Mark Quarter, what I advise you to do is invite Jeff Brown to the boardroom. Have a look, have a big discussion over a coffee. Put some Mogadon in his coffee, and then while he's asleep, just eat him. That would be my answer. I don't think there's enough presidential candidates being eaten by incumbent presidents in the league. And I think that's a field we need to pursue.
Yeah, good old Hannibal Quarter.
Oh, well, look at Eddie. You see Eddie on Footy Classified. Yeah, you don't think he's eaten the candidate or two? It's that nice, ruddy, round face of his. Come on.
I can tell you one thing he hasn't eaten. Humble pie.
We're playing Essendon 3:20 on Sunday. I don't know where we're playing on.
MCG, I believe it is.
Yeah, who knows these days?
Isn't that cordoned off? And will there be? Is it classed as a playground? Because apparently that's the most evil thing now. Do you think the players are going to rock up and there's going to be tape all over the gates?
Yeah,
a playground. You are playing at a ground. It's a playground.
Well, they should. That's a good point. They should actually be playing in, like, all the players should just be outfitted in giant condoms, like in Naked Gun, so they can't catch anything from one another. And then you'll see some slipperiness.
No, I think they should wear those giant, was it the inflatable sumo suits or the big balls that when they run at each other and they bounce and just
Yeah, that's a
fly
good
off the opposite
idea.
direction? I think that that would suit. If it's dewy, that'd be all right for us too. We'd probably excel.
Yeah. Well, Essendon could drop out of the eight. It's going to depend on other games. What
Yeah, this
happens?
is. I think it's going to be a very interesting weekend because there's that many
Permutations.
permutations that can happen towards the who's going to make finals and who doesn't. So what did we work out before that there's a potential that GWS could drop out of the eight,
So
Essendon could drop out,
so G
Freo and
yeah.
West Coast. Well, there's four of them in that group that can directly influence each other
So Giants
with
are
the
seventh on
results.
42 points. Essendon is eighth on 40 points, but a very healthy percentage of 107
Yep.
compared to
Yep.
everyone else. West Coast and Fremantle are on 40 points. West Coast 94%, Fremantle 89%. Richmond's 36 points, so they'd need a lot of stuff to fall their way, and they're on 97.8%. And Saints are 36, similar thing. You look at GWS, they play Carlton at Marvel. You'd think that GWS should win that, but I mean, they are a very spasmodic team.
Mm-hmm.
But given Carlton's lost to Port Adelaide, I saw that Carlton got 5 goals or something to 2 or something or whatever, and then Port kicked the next 19 goals.
Did Carlton realise they were allowed to come out of the change rooms?
And David Teague, he tried to put a positive spin on it. He came out and he said nobody kicks 20 goals in a row against Carlton.
Did for the winners, did they use the footage of that Port Adelaide versus the bye as highlights?
I think they would have made Carlton look good. So you'd think GWS should win that. Now, if GWS lose, they still have 2 points on everyone on the other candidates. So, and then you get Fremantle playing St Kilda, which is to be confirmed, but it's going to be Victoria somewhere, you'd imagine. Now, Freo has a chance of winning that. On 89%, they're not going to have any monumental percentage shift, but they're a chance of winning that. And that then they'll depend on what Essendon and GWS do. And West Coast play. Who does West Coast play? I can't remember. Brisbane Lions at Brisbane,
which will be a big ask.
And at 4:35, so that'll be a big ask. Yeah. So come Sunday, come our game. Let me just have a look at it again. Come our game. So yeah. So by the time we play Essendon, the only other game to be played is the mockbuster versus Adelaide versus North. So that's got no bearing on anything.
It does a little bit, but it does for us. But
yeah, in terms of the finals.
So yeah, what we were talking about leading into this was that there's the potential there that if Essendon are guaranteed a finals berth, what type of game are they going to bring? Against us? Are they going to go cotton wooling themselves? Are we a chance to run over them, which would be awesome? But because for us, I think the highest we can finish is 15th. And I want to finish as high as we possibly can to devalue that pick. Although maybe I should just read Twitter, all those people who can see into the future and they can just tell us what the outcome of this weekend is. And the lowest we can finish is 17th, which is going to be a bit of pill if that's the case. So we really want North to beat Adelaide to keep us propped up above Adelaide. Or if we beat Essendon, that then puts us up. I think it was above Gold Coast. They don't win.
Yeah.
So we can finish 15th.
So Gold Coast plays Sydney at Marvel. You'd think that Sydney is going to win that.
Yes.
Gold Coast, their form has been up and down, but you'd think that they're probably looking towards the end of the season too. So we have the potential to finish 15th. We have a better percentage in Gold Coast. So if we were to win, would spring above them if they lost. But Adelaide plays North. That's over in Adelaide. So if Adelaide win, you'd probably go off the home team, although North's been pretty good.
Yeah, well, the thing is, North are guaranteed the spoon now. They've got nothing who need to tank, so you might as well just go out there and have an absolute red-hot crack. It actually probably suits Adelaide to finish second last, doesn't it? They get a better pick.
I'd imagine it does, yeah.
So, you got to wonder about what the motivations with some of these games is going to be like.
Yeah, look, the thing with North, even though they got the spoon guaranteed, I don't think that. I think as the season's gone on, they've gotten better and better. So they've actually been competitive. They pushed Sydney the other week, so I actually think
Almost ran over them.
Yeah, they look, like they're really trying to instill some fighting spirit. They got some pretty good structure on that. So I think they're a good chance against Adelaide. But in terms of what we're talking about, Essendon could be in constant eighth, and they might be in a position where they can't move come our game. They might just be stuck eighth, and that might be it. At the very best, it might be like, well, they'll be in the finals, but they could move to seventh, and then they might start asking, well, do we want to play this team or that team? Or do we want to go here to play a final or there to play a final? But as you pointed out, you're probably not going to have really any clear idea where the finals will be played. But in terms of Sydney and GWS being in the eight, they're not going to be played in New South Wales. So, and the other thing too is the Bulldogs could actually drop down to fifth or sixth or whatever. So you couldn't potentially get a Victorian home final. So there's a lot of things to play out. The only guarantee is really that it looks like Melbourne will finish in the top three at the very least. That's the only guarantee. Everyone else can move around quite a bit.
Well, if they win, they secure the minor premiership or something, isn't it?
Yep.
No.
Yeah, but then you have Geelong and Port on 64 points. So if Melbourne lose, Geelong or Port go to first. But if Geelong or Port lose and the Bulldogs win, then the Bulldogs can jump and those two teams can drop down. They'll stay in the top four. Anyway, just in terms of our game, it's really about what sort of Essendon's going to show up.
Yep.
And how motivated they're going to be to smash us. I mean, I was saying to people earlier in the week, it's going to be like 1987 where we had a really sort of poor year with injuries and it was very, tumultuous year. And we played Essendon in the last round and we beat them in an upset. I think they were ninth prior to us playing them. So I've said, well, it's going to be like that again. But if we actually lose and finish 17th, you realize that I think that'll be the lowest we've ever finished. We finished Wooden Spooners in 99, but that we didn't have 18 teams back then. And in 2005, we finished 15th, but there was only 16 teams back then. So finishing 17th would actually 16th or 17th will be our lowest finish ever.
Can we give that to Bucks? He's got another record under his belt then, hasn't he?
Oh, hopefully he puts it on his CV when he goes to Carlton. Oh. What's your tip? You almost got the 80 points this week.
I wasn't far off. I think we'll beat the Bombers by 80 points.
I'm going to beat us. I'm going to tip us winning by 13 points. Finally, I put a question out there on Twitter. What is the biggest blight on the game? And some of the responses were umpiring and the rules, the MRO, which for its inconsistency. Brady Mychek says hello. The rolling zones and how they affect games defensively, the media, and then an interesting response. Spook's the biggest blight on the game.
Yeah, it's hard to fault that one, really, isn't it?
So what's your biggest blight on the game?
Can I say Malcolm again?
Yeah, you can say about that. That never gets old.
I think at the moment it's the standard of umpiring, the lack of consistency. Yeah, they're not exactly new tales being told, but it's getting progressively worse. It's really hard to question what's going on. My other favorite one would be what's exactly 15 meters to you?
Oh, geez, that frustrates the hell out of me. Yeah.
And it's things like that just grate on you. That you when you're watching, especially when you're on the TV, you're seeing things getting paid and then things being missed, and you're thinking, well, what are you not seeing? What's the difference between those two events? You've set a precedent with one, and then you've just completely thrown it all out the window with every other occurrence. It's hard to get that you've got rules in a game for a reason so that you can understand what's going on, but it just seems like half the rules just vanish.
Well, the 15-meter one really kills it because there'll be a call. I mean, I've noticed a lot now. The umpires are calling it's not 15 when the ball's still only halfway through its trajectory. It's like, well, Now you're anticipating of where it's going to end up. But then the other thing is too, is they call it's not 15, and then the guy plays on and does an equally or even smaller kick, and that one's fine. They'll be paid a mark. It's like, according to the one you just didn't pay, that one shouldn't have been paid either. So their guesswork, it really is annoying.
Yep.
My biggest blight in the game is, and this is really driving me nuts the more and more I watch the games, is the fucking low five. I'm sick of it.
The low five.
You know, like when players give each other a low five.
After they fuck up something.
Yeah, it's like, oh, the ball went out of bounds. Yeah, I'll give you a low five. Hey, that guy totally took a mark all over your head and kicked the goal. Here, give me a low five. Oh, you dropped the ball in the goal square and your opponent kicked the goal. Yeah, a low five. Just what are you doing?
Maybe they should give each other a shit bow.
That would be better. It's fucking all look bloody low fives. It's like, what the fuck are you doing? And that just happens. It happens so often after something totally ordinary, or as you said, a fuck up. It's like, yeah, yeah, it's okay. It's okay. You got embarrassed and cost us a goal and potentially the match, low five.
Whatever happened to the old public berating?
Yeah, well, I mean, you still get the occasional one. The most famous in the Collingwood was probably fucking when Nick Maxwell gave it to Alex Fasolo.
Yep.
The other one, there was the other one the other week with Jordan He gave it to Chris Main. Maynard or Main?
That was Maynard. Him and Main were having that. Maynard.
That was actually this game, wasn't it? When they were going back and forth.
At half time, wasn't it? They showed
that was actually good to see. So and
maybe it happened as well last week. Maybe they hate each other. Is that why he's going to Melbourne?
Who, the Goey and Maynard?
Maynard, yeah.
I don't know. But
the all the berating.
Yeah, I don't mind seeing it when you feel like it's constructive, or when it's just someone, when it's one player probably just telling the other one he's shit or you fucked up in his shit, then you don't want that.
Low five was shit. Maybe that was what it was about. It was a shit low five.
Oh, it's better than it's worse than the high fives where they miss the other player and they hit him in the eye or something like that.
That's a Collingwood thing to do.
I actually saw
the 1970 grand final was one of those.
Well, actually, I don't know why. I saw an interview with Herita Lamumba when he was talking about a game in 2005 where he went to give Shane Wade on a high five and he missed his hand and slapped him in the nose and cut him open and had to go off. So it happens. That shit happens.
He did say judo chop at the time.
Any final thoughts?
No, let's just get this season over and done with.
Oh, that would be good.
I think the good thing about the season completing this weekend, it really means that everything in that next phase starts to ramp up.
Yeah,
and hopefully we get to get an announcement soon. Because we certainly have to do it before the draft and trade period. Yeah,
I mean, again, how much is the COVID? How much does that affect what they've tried to do? I mean, I don't know, how far they've gotten in their shortlisting. I don't know if they've shortlisted anyone. I mean, the media claims they have, but the club obviously hasn't because.
Well, surely Clarko's on the short list.
Oh, they haven't spoken to him. I heard they're not interested in him.
It's not the joke. Think about his height.
They just said to him, "Oh, what have you ever done?" Yeah, but if they got targets on that list who are part of finals campaigns, that might slow things down. But I mean, where the list is at, you'd think the coach, whoever the coach is, it's not like you can come along and go, well, what you really need is an outside runner and this and that. It's where the list is at. You actually need something everywhere. You need a key forward. You need a key defender. You need a genuine A-grade midfielder. So it's like, how much input is the coach going to be able to have? It's not like you sort of finish sixth and you're now just putting the finishing touches in the rebuild.
I think it's not so much about that. It's more about who gets retained.
Oh, that's a good point, yeah.
So it's a mandatory change of 4, isn't it, each year?
Oh, you'd think they'd cover that. Between Main and Greenwood are gone, so that's 2. And you think that Cox and Sy will be the other 2. So they've already got the 4. It's just how deep do they cut? And again, this is why I think people like Josh Thomas are still being retained. It's just you can't cut so deep that you're going to just be left with, 18-year-olds. And the other thing you got to look at is if you cut players, you need to replace them. And if your draft hand is pick to 98, 112, and 148, it's like, well, would you prefer to just keep Josh Thomas on rather than take 148 in the draft? Is going to probably be me. So,
yeah, that's a good point.
So it's also going to depend what they're able to bring into the club. And again, that will be other aspects that will come into that with the salary cap and all that sort of stuff.
Thing, yeah, obviously this year is not a great example, but you can still keep Josh Thomas next year and not play him.
Yeah.
If a better prospect comes along, then he can run around the VFL for 12 months.
Well, as I said, with Josh Thomas, I think he'll fall into the category of depth, and he'll just come up every now and again, or they might play him as a bit of a that medical sub. But again, I mean, the big problem too is you got to look at, you go get 28, 19-year-olds, for example, and then COVID affects next year. And again, there's no second tier competition, or the second tier competition is compromised. It's like, well, what are these kids doing? They're not getting development. They're not getting the play. And you don't want to bring them all up to get smashed every week. So again, there's a nasty balancing act. I mean, there's always a balancing act that you got to maintain. But COVID now actually adds a new dimension to it. So if you're rebuilding, and this is why I think we haven't seen some of these kids like Reece McInnes and all that, it's just because the second tier competitions were suddenly canned. So you're bringing these guys potentially in with no grounding behind them for 6 weeks or something. Anyway, that's it from us. Yep. We'll be back next week following the victory over the Bombers, knocking him out of the finals race. It'll be great. It'll be one of the greatest rants ever. We should
catch up again and do it on Zoom.
Oh yeah, that sounds good. We should meet in the park and do it. We can't get on the swings. We can't do it on the seesaw. Oh well.
No, and apparently we're not allowed to take masks off and drink alcohol.
Oh,
Dad.
That's a shame.
Yeah, well, there's a will, there's a way, though.
You can drink through a mask.
I can drink through anything.
Can you drink through a pandemic?
I've drunk through worse. I've drunk through Collingwood grand final losses.
Oh, we don't lose grand finals, do we?
No.
Anyway, that's it from us. Later.
All right. See you next week.